Welcome to Upper Pylon 2. Our mission is to provide you with an in-depth review of every episode of DS9 in the order they were broadcast. Tonight's episode is Let He Who Is Out Sin Ellipses, and this is Matt in Buffalo.
And this is Blair from Ontario, Canada.
And this is Matt from Arizona, and you are cleared for docking. Well, I wish I could say that we were in a good mood this week, but we just watched Let He Who Is Without Sin, and we'd like to get through it as quickly as possible so we have to never talk about it again. So, without further ado, I hope you're ready for this. Synopsis. Worf becomes a terrorist with no repercussions on Risa. This is the 7th episode of Season 5. It first aired on November 11th, 1996. Written by Ira Stephen Mera and Robert Hewitt Wolf, and I just like that Matt put in parentheses, shame on them. And it was...
real quick. I mean, we're going into the review right now, but you would swear this is an episode that's written by the people that they have to hire who aren't part of the writing staff, freelance writers who come in and don't understand the show. You would swear it was by them, not the main two guys behind the show. Sorry. Right. Let's go on.
And it was directed by Rene Aubergenois, Odo himself. Guest stars this week include Monty Markham as Pascal Fullerton, Chase Masterson as Lita, Frank Kopich as Bullion Lackey, and Vanessa Williams as Arandis. It takes a lot for me, as someone who loves Vanessa Williams, to hate something with Vanessa Williams in it, but there's a first time for everything. And with that being said, Matt, get us as quickly as possible through Let He Who Is Without Sin.
You got it. Teaser. As we join the show, Morn is giving us a hint to the themes of this episode. Love, right? Yeah, sure. Odo and Cisco kill some time and chit-chat. Soon, a very sore Dax arrives, and she is in pain from the Worf sexcapades. Worf then arrives and expresses his jealousy of Dax hanging out with her transparent skulled friend. Anyhow, Dax and Worf are going to go on vacation to Risa, and Worf lets it know that he wants to talk. I guess this is a running joke throughout the show. I can't be certain. They then find out that Bashir and Lita pop by and intend to score a free ride with them to Risa. And as they are just about to leave, Quark arrives. And guess what? He'll be tagging along too. Zoinks, this is going to be such a zany episode as we break to opening credits.
Isn't Quark's costume the same costume he wore on the final season 2 episode?
Oh, yeah, when they went camping, the Jem'Hadar.
Yes, the Jem'Hadar. That was a good part about the opening.
It looks like, you know what, I'll say this much. For all the negative things I'm going to say about this episode, there's nothing inherently wrong with this teaser yet. I mean, like, nothing's terribly egregious. It fits in kind of with the DS9 humor in the sense that, like, all these people are tagging along. It is kind of reminiscent of the Jem'Hadar in the sense that it was supposed to be a personal vacation and then a bunch of people want to go with them. So there's nothing wrong yet, but this episode really goes downhill very fast. And sadly, some of the things that will become big problems for me later on in the episode are here in this teaser. Chief among them, you know, I have to say, Matt, I was never on your page with Worf, your feelings toward Worf, until this week.
Yeah, let me say that this is not going to help my feelings on Worf, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more. But Matt, to your point about the nothing inherently wrong with the opening, I will say basically you're right. However, the teaser is often supposed to be tone setting to the episode, and the teaser here is setting the tone for an episode that we in no way get, and I don't think was. Well, who knows what they intended? I mean, we can take a guess at, but you're to think it's like a romp comedy, and it's not at all that. It's heavy and bad.
This episode sets me up for this teaser. Rather sets me up for an episode that I wouldn't mind if it was like the Deep Space Nine version of National Lampoon's Vacation. I'd be on board with it, but that's not the episode we get.
No, you don't even get the zaniness of you're supposed to think, I guess, that since you're getting this annoying Bashir, that you're to think that maybe he's reverted a little bit, and Lita's going to be the ditz on the trip, and then Quark is going to be his insufferable self. You think that is going to be the makings of your zany road trip comedy, and that was never their goal, but that's what they tried to tone set, I guess, with this teaser. So yeah, it's not fundamentally bad here, but it completely misrepresents
Yeah,
what you get and what they intended, I think, ultimately.
you're absolutely right. It sets you up for an episode that isn't the episode.
Right. Well, speaking of what's not the episode, let's get into this fun stuff. Act 1. On the way there, Lita serves everyone drinks. Quark is annoying and gives everybody their sex signaling statues, and Worf is annoyed. They arrive on Ryza, and as they promised, Lita and Bashir and Quark all go off on their own for their various sexes. And now Dax and Worf are alone. They have a conversation in what is our first of 2 clips.
Aren't you uncomfortable?
So after the clip, let me just finish out the act.
Are designed for comfort even in the most extreme environments.
Well, you look at a place. I mean, look around you. Isn't it beautiful?
It is an artificially created paradise, maintained by the most elaborate weather control system in the Federation. In its natural state, Ryza is nothing more than a rain-soaked, geologically unstable jungle.
Maybe so. But the only dark cloud I see around here is you.
I did not come here to admire the scenery.
If you say so. I guess we should just go home.
Well, maybe. I would not be so hasty.
I take it the scenery has improved.
A few months ago, when I was commanding the Defiant on a scouting mission in the Gamma Quadrant, we encountered a protostar cluster. Swirling mass of color set against a background of glowing clouds and burning sky. It's the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Until now.
I've got to take you on vacation more often. Dax? Is that you? Mirandus, I was wondering if you were still here.
Oh, not only am I still here, I've been promoted. I'm chief facilitator for the entire Tentivy Lagoon.
Worf, this is Arandis.
A friend of Curzon's.
She and Curzon spent a lot of time together on his last trip here.
We had a wonderful time together until I killed him.
Killed him?
Death by Jamaharan. I suppose there are worse ways to go.
Trust me, he died happy.
He was such a sweet old man.
I'll take your word for it.
It's so good to see you again, Dax. Your new host is very attractive.
Thank you, I'd like to think so. You haven't aged a day.
Bryce has been very kind to me. Come, let me show you around.
Maybe later.
Of course. All that is ours is yours.
Thank you. But we have everything we need.
That wasn't very nice.
Why? Is there something of hers you want?
Arandis was Curzon's lover, not mine.
I hope you remember that.
You're still angry about Captain Baudet.
If I am angry, it is because you do not take our relationship seriously.
Or if we just got here, do we have to start arguing again?
If you were a Klingon woman, we would already be married.
In case you haven't noticed, I am not a Klingon woman.
That is no excuse. I have been loyal to you, and I expect you to be loyal to me in return.
I have been loyal to you, but I'm not going to let you run my life.
I'm not trying to run your life.
Then I'm going to go and have a big glass of eichelberry juice.
That is a mistake. You are allergic to eichelberry juice. It makes your spots itch.
But I like the taste.
Fine. Have as much eichelberry juice as you like, but it is still a mistake.
But it is my mistake to make. Now, why don't you go up to our room and put on your bathing suit so we can swim in the lagoon?
So, what you missed in that infuriating clip is a visual of Terry Farrell being in a nice one piece bathing suit. Yes, this is an albeit a sexist comment, and I know everybody talks about it, but that is the one remotely interesting thing in this episode. What you also missed is the arrival of Vanessa Williams, and make no mistake, she is utterly pointless in this episode.
I wish you're right. I mean, I love Vanessa Williams. I mean, I know in the 90s she was starting to become a name. She had already had kind of a singing career. Around this time, she was in a very, huge guilty pleasure movie of mine. I don't know if you've seen it. Matt, you would be the only one on this panel who I think would have seen it. Did you ever see Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, it has one of the worst CGI alligators you're ever going to see.
It does, but it has Vanessa Williams, and I really like that movie. So it's a total guilty pleasure, and it was around the same time. So she is somewhat of a name, so I don't know why you get her to do nothing.
That goes to what they intended to do in this episode. You get her because she is completely beautiful, right? The intent of this episode was to have it as like a sexy romp and to push the envelope on what they could do for sexiness on Star Trek. You take your sexiest lead character, you take your sexiest B-level character in Lita, and you get off the street A-list, B-list guest star celebrity who is beautiful. And in theory, that's the makings of just like a titillating episode. But they in no way were allowed to go anywhere near that level of what they wanted to try and push the envelope on. And they wanted to do that probably just as a base appeal and have the what's her name from Star Trek Into Darkness bikini shot get people in there, but it would have thematically worked with the episode. If you're seeing all this Romanesque sexy excess, it works to the fundamentalists angle. But when you don't see that, you don't have anything work with the fundamentalist story. So in theory, it would have worked on a couple levels, but you don't get any of that.
No, you don't get any of that. I mean, that becomes a problem later for me when the fundamentalists come in. But I mean, the most you get out of this planet is like, yeah, they have the little statute that means you're looking for sex, but other than that, it's like, you see nothing more offensive going on Risa than you do like people on vacation in Hawaii,
Right, and that's the PG level of Star Trek. I mean, a lot of times these would air on a Saturday at 5 or 6 o'clock, and it's just what it is. And at this point in Star Trek, I wasn't really ever crying out to have it have sexiness to it. That's why it kind of jumps out weird in Enterprise when they do it. But they tried and they couldn't get anywhere near the level that they had to for this.
Yeah, but I was going to say the problem is Blair, I don't know how you feel about this too, but I mean, this episode's conflict is going to be like, these people are doing such immoral things and living to excess that it's driving the Federation to be weak. And here I am thinking like all these people are just on vacation in like a Hawaii setting. So what is the big deal?
Yeah, I agree. People go on vacation to get away from it all and relax and enjoy themselves and get away from the everyday, monotony of work and cleaning your house, making your bed. This is supposed to be fun, and this episode really wasn't doing it for me early on. And just at a continuity point, so Aranda said Curzon died basically with her, but didn't we see a flashback with Dax and Curzon kind of holding hands together, or Jadzia and Curzon holding hands together while she got the symbiont?
They weren't holding hands, but they were in the same room, and he looks up and kind of like smiles.
Yeah. So basically, we either A, had to rush Jadzia to Risa so we could do the surgery, or B, we had to somehow preserve Curzon and keep him alive long enough to get him back to wherever they had to do the symbiote transplant.
Why is it such that Vanessa Williams can only have sex on Risa?
That is a very good point.
It was a very good point. Thank you.
Yes. But that being
I was
said,
actually thinking the same thing, to be
wait,
fair.
we have to call Jadzia out quick. He's had the big one now.
Well, who knows? I mean, you don't know those characters' history. Maybe Vanessa Williams was vacationing on Trill at the same time that Jetsia was
But
there.
but that would assume that the death was unexpected, whereas the flashback in the first episode kind of, insinuated that this was a planned death. He had come to grips with himself and he was going to die. I don't really necessarily think that may have been the case based on
Well,
this story.
if you're teetering on the edge and you know it's coming, you give Vanessa Williams one last call
I was
up,
going to
right?
say that, I mean, if we were to take this one as canon, I mean, there are worse ways to go out than having sex with Vanessa Williams right before you go.
Absolutely. Look at all those red shirts that have been killed by flowers and lightning bolts and
So,
But this,
oh, go on.
the thing that you talked about, the infuriatingness of this clip, this starts, what's perhaps the most repulsive part of this episode is that Worf is just a sexist, misanthropic asshole this whole time.
Throw in potentially racist if you're Klingon. Throw in a mentally abusive
boyfriend. Yeah.
That. Hold on, we're getting a bit of an echo there from something. I'm echoing. Not at the moment. I think I'm echoing with Matt somehow. And
sounds good to me. I don't hear you echoing.
Matt, am I still echoing?
No.
I am not still echoing. Okay, edit that all out. I forget what I was going to say.
Sexist, misanthropic, abusive boyfriend.
Yeah. So I picked that clip because it really runs the gambit of showing you everything that's wrong with him in one quick little thing, where it not only, and I'll argue this, it not only makes Worf look awful, it makes Dax look awful too, because he is all over the place and seemingly wins her back by just saying how beautiful she is. And I don't want her to be the type of person who is always out to try and save someone or is easily swayed back and ignores all the abusive stuff when he just is nice for a little bit. And unfortunately, that's what they made her character. And I know that's a compelling story for some people, but that in no way is ever what I thought her character should be.
No, it's not reflective of the Jadzia I like.
She was textbook, can't even think of the term, but the textbook...
battered wife.
That's it. The battered wife that, well, I'm sorry, I'll tell you, you look beautiful. And how many lifetimes she had? She should have told them to stuff it up,
No, I mean, I'm editing this episode, so I can edit out my swears. But, I mean, seriously, she should have beat the shit out of him this week.
Yeah, and instead she swoons back to him twice with two little sap, incredibly manipulative things. This one, the nebula, and then what we have is a clip later on, just the most hackneyed, oh, I'm sorry, I was an abused child kind of a thing. And it isn't even that. So it's just like, oh, it's so bad. It's just infuriating that they hurt two characters, I should say, and completely ruin the relationship going forward. And this is at the level of a threshold episode for me, in that if you want enjoyment for a show, you need to just make it so in your head that this episode never existed.
No, I will, because nothing in this episode has any consequence.
And I think, like you said, I think you're telling people to forget it. And I honestly believe people do, because people still discuss that the Dax and Worf relationship was probably the number one relationship in all of Star Trek out there, outside of maybe Riker and Troy. But really that was more, they never really got together until the movies type thing. I can't really think of any other relationship that a lot of people appeared to be fully on board. And even in the writing, they went the whole 9 yards with the wedding and whatnot. So I think people forget about this episode.
I'd put, I'm no real big fan of Voyager, but I'd put Paris and B'Elanna over this, and Cisco in this. What's her name? The freighter captain.
Cassidy.
That's a nice relationship too.
But not from a main cast perspective, though. I was just thinking more of our main characters. But yeah, you're right. I forgot about the Taurus and Paris relationship. If anything, that seemed more real than this one. But yeah.
And the main cast level is so murky the Rom and Lita eventually is better than this.
Well, okay, I take it back. That's the only thing that's hinted at from in this episode
Yes.
and future episodes. But even you don't need this episode to set that up. The other one that it actually happens and does nicely. But yeah, I hear what you're saying about Dax, Matt, and I totally agree. Worf just makes me angrier this week.
Well, no, yeah, Worf makes me angry. Dax makes me sad.
Yeah.
Because it's just completely, well, not completely, but it's a horrible thing that they're doing to a character who should be a hell of a lot wiser, stronger, and smarter than what we see her be. So that's one infuriating part of the episode. The other infuriating part picks up after that clip, because soon after, Worf is in his room, and he just lets a radical, Pascal Fullerton, into his room. This guy leads the New Essentialist, a fundamentalist whack job organization, which looks like it maybe is just 3-4 people tops. And they want to lead a political revolution on Ryza. Blah, blah, blah. Stuff about morals. Commercial break. Let's steamroll into 2 a little bit. When we come back, Worf has subscribed to this jerk's newsletter, and he wants Dax to read it. And she is not too thrilled and simply doesn't. And they walk in on Lita getting a sexy massage by somebody not named Bashir. And let's point out that this now is one of the toned down elements of the episode.
Yes, I noticed that.
As originally shot, this had Lita naked in a bathtub. So
and
this is...
and if you watch the teaser to this episode, that shot is still in there.
Oh, there's a still on memory alpha from it. Not to say that they aren't pushing it as much as they can, showing a ton of cleavage on Lita here. So, I mean, they're trying, but this is tame by today's standards, certainly. So Dax pulls Worf away, who is caught staring. Hypocrite much, Worf?
Yeah, this is the other thing. Is like, not only does he want to be an asshole about his own relationship, he starts wanting to dictate terms of other people's relationship.
Oh, and again, he is not... They might play it and he might explain it as like, I was staring because that wasn't Bashir. No, he was clearly staring at Lita. So Dax, it's not in her character to do it, rightfully so, but she could have just ripped him, saying, seriously, you won't let me have lunch in the promenade with the transparent headed dude, but you get to just stare at Lita's boobs in front of me, just drooling. Worf is a wild hypocrite, and just added to the list of things wrong with him this week. But yet he gets to still act all high and mighty about her maybe cheating. And Worf goes off to watch the crazy equivalent of a street preacher scream his nonsense. And then he sees Bashir with a woman not named Lita. And they watch Fullerton do his boring-ass thing, saying the Federation is too weak to win against the Klingons, the Dominion, the Borg, the Romulans, even though, because we're all fans of Star Trek, we see a very long history of humans winning against each one of them each and every time they run up against them. So Fullerton's whole theory is hogwash.
The only part of that scene that I liked, and it's the first thing that I thought of when he starts his speech, is Bashir says, I think, did he just insult us? And I'm like, what kind of message pusher are you if you're going to insult the people you're trying to sway?
Well, that's the stuff I was referring to. I mean, that's the stuff you see with street preachers, the ones that pull up in front of a sporting event or on a college campus. They just stand out there and screech about gays and stuff. And it's like, who are you affecting by just yelling about all this kind of stuff? It's like, it's complete being tone deaf. You're so crazy by your thing, you have no idea how to actually appeal to people. And I don't think it was all that inappropriate the way that he did it. It kind of rang a little true in how that sort of a jerk, loudmouth.
I mean, I don't like him. Their things don't make any sense. What's more infuriating, though, is that Worf is too stupid and he falls for this.
Is he falling for it, or is he just being that much of a manipulative, horrible boyfriend? Is he just doing it to be even more abusive towards Dax? either way, it's not anything good for his character. So it's just.
What's your read, Blair?
Well, I definitely believe Worf isn't getting the MVP of season 5. I can assure you that. But I honestly, I don't think in this particular case, I know we're saying he's a manipulative, abusive boyfriend. I don't really think that's the case. I think he's honestly fallen for it. He's a warrior that sees the Federation probably, he thinks they should be more prepared, should be more warrior-like, because in some ways, what this guy is somewhat saying could ring true. They're about to go into a war against the Dominion. If not, there already are, but this is about to escalate even further. And in Worf's mind, he probably feels the Federation isn't ready for that, and that guys like this maybe are a great example as a wake-up call. But realistically, this guy isn't. But I can see Worf believing those thoughts and falling for this guy's garbage, which obviously he does.
I mean, but you would think he would be smart enough to, okay, maybe the Federation does have preparedness problems. It has nothing to do with the fact that Ryza exists.
No, right. but look at what happened. We just dealt with a whole episode, a two-parter, where we called the president of the Federation a spineless wimp who gave into everything and needed to be stronger, right?
So if you connected it to something that actually mattered, then that would be fine. But the whole thing is against Ryza and the kind of the Sodom and Gomorrah pleasures that it offers. That's basically what I'm getting from this guy. And
he's targeting Ryza
ridiculous.
Now. Yeah, but he's targeting Ryza now, but he is extrapolating this to all of the Federation. And one of the specific reasons why I don't think Worf should have ever fallen for this is why should he actually think the Federation is all that weak when we've seen him just serve under the command of two captains, Picard and Sisko, and he has now seen both of them, when the time comes, can just command like you wouldn't believe and lead the crew through incredibly difficult circumstances and find deeper metal like you wouldn't believe. So it's really, Worf, you think we're that weak when you see Picard rally people against all sorts of odds? You're seeing Sisko do it now, and just wait till you see him when he really gets angry. It's just really, you think you're that weak when how many times have you seen your two captains save the universe?
Not to mention, he's so proud of being a Klingon. Tell me all those wars that the Klingons won against the Federation again.
The Tribbles.
None of them.
Yeah. So after that whole street preacher thing, they enjoy some nice drinks, and our crew debate all of this. And soon after, Lita arrives and Bashir, and they kiss, and Worf has had enough. He now is a complete jerk and confronts them. And what a twist. This is some separation rite between the two, crazy alien stuff, waka waka waka.
And it was really, it takes this long to break up with someone in Bajoran ritual? What happens if it's an ugly divorce? Do you really have to go on vacation with each other?
This was your typical, I felt like every time we always would see every week with Worf, a new Klingon ritual that is steeped in history that we'd never heard before. This is exactly what this felt like. Did we see Kira do this with all her boyfriend breakups?
Well, one died, and I don't know if we. I don't know if we, we never see her breaking up with Shakar. Maybe she did this.
This is just silly.
The element of this that I hated is that this is just such cliched, bad, old science fiction writing. I'm reading a book from 1935 right now about mole people living under the ground. And it's zany stuff where, wrinkles on women are more attractive, so they take wrinkle cream. Isn't this crazy? This is the type of aliens are opposite people that you see from really outdated, now hacky science fiction. To have this come out on here, I don't care if it was meant to be a zany sex romp episode. That is awful stuff. Just
Not to mention,
awful.
it doesn't make much sense. Like I said, what happens if the divorce isn't amicable? What happens? I mean, and it's not really. What kind of breakup ritual lets you go on vacation, slowly break up, but still continue to bang every now and then while you're in the process? Because at one point she says she hasn't gotten him out of her system yet, and he says the same thing, so they go off to screw.
Oh, it's hacky stuff, and then it doesn't even work.
I have to point out Bashir may have taken a hit on his MVP nomination because of this episode.
They all are. Nobody's coming out of this episode unscathed.
No, it's true. If you're going to Ryza, you've just you take that risk of losing your MVP status. Believe me. Even Quark somehow might lose it.
I'm going to cut Bashir a little bit of slack this week, or if not Bashir, then Alexander Siddig, because I did read during the making of this episode, he was really distracted and his heart wasn't into it because Nana Visitor was giving birth during the production of this episode.
That's fair, but it sure seems like every other actor was on cruise control this week.
Right.
Yeah, they were mailing it in. They were on vacation, let me tell you. So, very disappointing.
Except for Worf, who's just so over the top and such an asshole. Like, who would ever want to go on vacation with him again?
I must admit, Quark did okay though.
Quark did okay.
He had some funny moments.
He's barely in it.
And when he was an all-star. But yeah.
I mean, he gives me my only laugh from this whole episode, and I'll mention it when we get to it. But
when he was two-fisting the Horgans or whatever.
I mean, okay. I guess I'll just say. I'll just say it now. When Lita reveals that she's in love with Ram, and he gives Bashir the hologram and says, "Here, you need this more than I do."
That is true. That was that would have been a good clip to have.
Yeah, sorry. Anyhow, so when they're having these drinks, the bunch of whack jobs arrive and tear down the curtains and point phasers at people. They're just, ransacking the place. Commercial break, Act 3. Dax and Worf are about to fight back when the whack jobs just stop. Now, let's be absolutely clear here. There will be no fun or excitement this week. No fighting. This was all a bit of stupid show and theater, I guess. They clearly should be charged and thrown off the planet, but they aren't.
Yeah, that's my issue with this is like Dax walks up and says, as a Starfleet officer, I could arrest you. And I'm like, yeah, so why don't you?
Right.
Please.
But they say that, well, it won't happen because the Horizons are spineless. But no, they're stupid apparently because, come on, have respect for, the 100,000 other people on the planet. It's not like you need to prosecute them for just to punish them. You have the duty to respect everyone else on the planet. It's just so bad.
Not to mention, if the Horizons don't want to press charges, why wouldn't Dax want to? Why wouldn't Starfleet want to press charges? Like they're even though no one got hurt. I mean, they're two of their officers
had a weapon pointed at them.
Yeah,
you would think that in and of itself would constitute a crime. Doesn't matter if it's empty. They felt a threat, right? Okay, let's keep going. That night, Worf gets his talk with Dax finally. He doesn't like her impulsive nature and feels it reflects poorly on him. He wants to be an insanely controlling, awful, abusive, awful boyfriend. And he just doesn't get why she doesn't like that. So Dax goes off to hang out with Vanessa Williams. Bashir and Lita break up. And the only important thing of this episode comes out, Lita is falling for Rom. Good for them, whatever. So Worf stumbles on Dax hanging out with Vanessa Williams, molding some clay and a phallic symbol. He sulks.
I was gonna say, where was the Righteous Brothers playing during that scene? I mean, right out of Ghost.
That was a bad scene too, where they're like, yeah, I can feel it. I can feel it. Just like the energy flowing through them. Oh, whatever. Anyhow, Worf sulks, and guess what? He runs off and joins a terrorist group. Holy crap, this is awful. Commercial break.
And it makes no sense.
It's just...
Is that what really takes him to turn against his ideals in Starfleet is because his girlfriend won't do what he says?
He is, what, 13-year-old boy, 14-year-old boy who has his first girlfriend
And
and wants to go off and write bad poetry.
I've seen early TNG. Where does he get off scolding Jadzia for being impulsive?
Yeah, this is the guy who wants to shoot at the TV screen whenever an alien shows up on there.
I mean, this is the man who, I mean, I'm not saying he wasn't justified, but this is the man who, when Kayla was killed, just beamed himself over to the other ship on his own volition and killed the man who killed her.
It's just, and what are we ever seeing from Dax? I mean, in theory, are we supposed to kind of in some way sympathize with Worf during this episode? I'd argue that eventually we are with his horrible sap story, but you would hope they would construct an episode in that we would at least be able to see something from Worf's perspective, and that Dax is like going a little too far, maybe sometimes, but we never see that.
I mean, I don't know about you two, but if that's the case, then it was a horrible misfire for me. And what's even more baffling to me is, you know, I guess we'll talk about later, but I wanted to get you guys' opinion on it. He joins this terrorist group and maybe doesn't commit any acts of terror himself, but he certainly aids and abets a terrorist group. Where's his court martial at the end of this episode?
Oh,
He's Worf. He'll just claim it's some Klingon tradition, and he'll get off scot-free.
No, maybe this is the future prosecutor in me, but I would be pressing charges. If I was a Starfleet, you know, JAG officer, I'd be pressing charges tomorrow.
guys, how does he have a career? How does he have a girlfriend at the end of this episode?
Because they hit the reset button.
Absolutely. It's terrible. Act 4. We come back, and Risa is now having terrible thunderstorms. Turns out Worf helped the Radicals sabotage the weather control systems. Clearly, like I said, his career should be over and Dax should dump him on the spot, right? No, of course not. Seriously, Worf is lucky that the economy basically doesn't exist in the future, because he surely just destroyed whatever Rises would be.
I know. And at the same, I mean, this is how he preaches his high morality. He's going to piss over everybody else's vacation.
Yep. Yeah, because that's all it is, because basically this whole act boils down to people just complaining about the rain and leaving Risa. Woo! Exciting. So while the economy crumbles down all around them, complaining about the rain, our hero Worf is very satisfied. And so much so that he gives his tacit approval to the fundamentalist that they should go off and do even worse. And just like that, Fullerton says he will. That should not be overlooked in this episode. Worf tells them this is just the start. Oh, what was he thinking?
Aiding and abetting a terrorist group.
Yeah. And he is not out of his uniform the whole time.
No.
Aiding and abetting a terrorist group in his Starfleet uniform. And we've seen in this show how much that means when characters stay in their uniform. Sisko showed the importance and the weight of what that means, the implications of it. Yeah. And the one where he is on the planet, the Amish planet. It means a lot. And Worf is in his uniform doing this. And we're told that should be unforgivable.
Poor Blair's sitting over there thinking, how much longer are they going to complain? But it's just so bad this week.
We can keep going, buddy. We can keep going.
Well, I think I've lost interest only due to the fact that I think we summed up all our thoughts over text messages there the other day. And, we pretty much, yeah.
This is bad, though.
Yeah, we don't talk about the show between ourselves before recording typically, except for the really bad ones. And then we can't wait.
I mean, literally, a little behind the scenes info here, guys. I watched this episode earlier this week because I knew I didn't have fond memories of it, but when I started watching it, and as I'm watching it, I had to text these guys and say, holy crap, this is worse than I remember it being.
I had to watch it twice. The notes and everything. Oh, let's bring it home because believe it or not, there's arguably a worse part still to play out in this episode. In Act 5, finally, Dax confronts Worf and wants to know why he is such a crappy Klingon and where all this controlling nature comes from. Oh, and he just lets it all out and lets the emotions fly in our second and thankfully final clip.
You know, from the age of 7, I was raised by humans on the farm world of Gault. It's a sparsely populated world, no more than 20,000 inhabitants. It often seemed as though everyone knew everybody else. But one thing was for certain. Everybody knew me. I was the Klingon child, the uncontrollable one. I was the biggest, the strongest, the most fearless child on the entire planet. I fought hard, played hard, did as I pleased.
What changed?
When I was 13, I was captain of my school soccer team. We had made the championships, and I was determined to win. Near the end of the second half, with the score tied, my team got a corner kick. Ball sailed up high. Both I and one of my opponents, a human boy named Mikkel, leapt up to head the ball. He had position, but I was determined to score. I remember laughing with excitement as I threw myself at him.
Go on.
The next thing I knew, the ball.
Can I comment on this clip coming out first, guys?
I have something to say about this clip too.
Turned around to
I was going to come out just going, wah! Just crying.
I just want to make one snarky comment, and then Blair, it's all yours.
Yeah. All right.
Let Matt
Sponsky,
have
you
it.
can. Yeah. Okay. And then you can go wham. Then I'll say my serious comment.
I'll let Matt have his snark.
It was an accident.
Which only makes it worse. Compared to Klingons, humans are fragile creatures. I realized at that moment, to live among them, I must practice restraint.
That must have been difficult for you.
At first. In time, it became a part of who I was, who I am.
And you're still afraid that if you lose control,
Someone I care about might get hurt.
that explains a lot.
No, it doesn't.
But you have to realize there are some things in life you can't control. And one of them is me. But what you can do is trust me. I care about you, Worf. And I would never do anything to hurt you.
Nor would I do anything to hurt you.
Even though he already did.
Who knows?
And 100,000 other people on the planet.
Give me credit for. It felt like an earthquake. So did that.
The essentialists.
You should see them all run. I think they finally realize that the party's over. Increase the feedback in the tectonic stress regulators. If I do the
Okay, I have a 2-word response to that whole story that basically sums up my feelings. Bitch, please.
Sponsky, do you have something to add?
Wah! It's just like, who cares? Just sap story.
And it makes
Apparently it works.
I mean, and that has no bearing on anything that happened during this episode.
No.
And it's so like I you know, it's not often that I call out Jadzia, but no, that doesn't explain everything.
Well, I have 2 points for this little story that you guys find so emotionally, disturbing. First of all, Worf plays soccer, so fantastic. Very happy about that. Hockey would have been good too. But I honestly must admit, the story isn't bad if it was in a completely different episode where maybe Worf was talking about, having to adjust to his human and Klingon ways. I don't think it gives any excuse for his behavior in this episode. But I think this story got wasted on this particular episode. It would have been far better had it been placed in a different episode. But I'm okay with the actual story itself.
It's like his get out of jail free card. Next time Dax gets me, is angry at me and I need to get out by just relaying some sappy story to him, I'll just dig this out.
Yeah, I was like, I'm sorry, I accidentally killed a child once when I was little.
Works every time.
I can't wait till he uses the hockey story next.
No, I think that's a fair comment, Blair. You're right. I think that if this had been another Worf struggling with humanity, maybe this story should have come in the way of the Warrior when he was trying to decide between staying with Starfleet or going with the Klingons to do their own mission. Something to where he was torn about something else. Here, it's wasted on this horrible story that doesn't excuse or explain anything of what we saw in the last 45 minutes.
Yeah, can't disagree. Let's bring this home, Smonsky.
Yeah, so that clip, and just like that, Worf and Dax are all good again, just like any abusive relationship. So Worf is now also a good person again, in addition to being a good boyfriend, so he is off to stop the fundamentalists. Worf arrives and basically tells them to stop, and you know what? They just do. Whatever. Fullerton gives Worf one awful backhanded slap for no reason. Maybe, I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but maybe some racist undertones there. Who knows? Who cares? Anyhow, the day is saved. Risa is nice again. Break the closing credits.
And we did forget the Rom story though, or we didn't really talk about that.
We talked about it.
It got mentioned.
We did it beforehand. Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, nothing's really done with it in this episode. I mean, she just says it.
No. Outside of, like you said, the visual effects and the Quark handing over.
Here you need it more than I do.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was a highlight of the episode.
Yeah, it's a punchline, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean, any real meat from that relationship is still down the line, and it's nice, but this is just a what moment, and that's it.
Yeah. And let's give our final rating so we never have to think about this episode again. So Blair, you go first. Your final thoughts and ratings for Let He Who Was Without Sin.
Well, I think this is probably going to be one of our quicker reviews, and I think we've covered a lot of it. Very disappointing. Worf is one of my favorite characters next to O'Brien in this series. Very disappointing to see the damage that's done on Worf. The controlling boyfriend analogy is just so spot on. We talked about Dax. She just came across as a 13-year-old teenage girl in her first ever relationship that just would take him back for any reason, which is very disappointing considering she has many, many lifetimes of relationships and would never put up with this kind of crap. It's just like if you asked yourself now as a 30 or 40-year-old person, would you allow what happened when you were a teenager to happen to you at this age? And most of you would probably say, screw that, I would stand up to somebody. So very disappointing. Like I said, Bashir probably is taking knock down a peg for his potential MVP nomination. I'm hoping he does pick it up, which I'm sure he will in the next few episodes. And Quark, fantastic in this episode. Love the two fisting the Horgons, fantastic. And it was a nice little throwaway line that we're going to see Rom and Lita eventually get down or get together in the future. So I struggle between a 1 and a 2. So I will give this episode 1.5 Horgons, and I don't really know what that would get you on Risa.
A girl and another woman who's a little person. I don't know. Matt, if you don't mind, I just want to get my rating off of
Oh, go for it, Matt.
this episode, man. Like I said in my text to these guys, it was worse than I remembered it. It's so awful. And, I agree with Matt in the sense that it makes me sad about Dax, and you guys make great points about what it does to her character. But, I was with Blair. I've always liked Worf, and particularly I liked Worf on this series better than he was on Next Generation. But wow, 45 minutes of character assassination. It was just awful. I really wanted for him to get the crap beat out of him this week, and it never came. And instead, it's so hackneyed and sappy, and it's abusive relationship. I have to block this episode out of my head canon for me to still like the Dax and Worf relationship, which I really do. I have fond memories of the future episodes, the wedding episode, and especially you put this episode next to Change of Heart, and it's not like a totally different relationship. But yeah, I'm just gonna have to pretend that this never happened. And you know what? I will never watch this episode again. In the interest of trying to give it a full star for something, I'll give it 1 star for Armin Shimmerman. He was the only thing I liked in this episode this whole week. Even, like I said, a huge fan of Vanessa Williams, totally wasted here. Just horrendous. Like I said, it was such creative whiplash that we went from one of the best episodes of the series last week with this episode. Just thoroughly disappointing. Don't watch it again. It's worse than you remember. Just pretend it doesn't exist. This is Deep Space Nine's Threshold.
Yeah, I have to kind of agree with Matt there. I remember this being bad, and it's worse than I remember. And I will reference or direct people to my ratings for Nor the Battle to the Strong, in that one of the criteria that I'll use for rating an episode is looking at what they are trying to accomplish with it, and then what the final product is, if they met their goals on it. And this episode, they admit they wanted to try and push the thresholds on the sexiness and use that as a way of actually making people question what the excesses are, and then give the fundamentalists some sort of leg to stand on. And they in no way do that. No element of this episode works. It's not sexy. It's not particularly interesting. The bad guys are boring, and you can not understand where they're coming from. And then you get to the truly bad stuff, which is a ruinous thing about Worf, a very disappointing element to Dax, and it completely destroys their relationship and any credibility or any way that I can root for it going forward. Because, the only way you can possibly want them to be together after this episode is if you completely forget it. And I just sat through this thing twice. I'm not going to forget about it. It's awful that they are together. It's bad. And I'll say, you might argue, well, the Worf was just a little worse this week. Look at him all the rest of the time. He is not a particularly good person, or friendly person, I should say. And Matt pointed it out. He's impulsive. He's got his issues. So no, this isn't too much of a stretch that it makes you question why somebody would be with him. This episode is awful, 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 awful. And it hits that ickiness threshold, because really, Dax, you're still with him? Really? Worf still has a job? It's 1 star all day long. 1 star is too high. In contention for worst episode ever. When the final Yuppies come, as far as I'm concerned, because we have to hit a higher threshold. Later in the seasons, the worst episodes stick out that bit more than first season episodes, which are a little excusable. This is inexcusable. Holy crap.
I don't know if you have, what your feelings are, guys, but I don't remember any future episode making me this angry again.
I know people are angry about one of the Ferengi episodes down the line.
Yeah, I know, and I don't.
But I don't remember it.
It's Prophet and Lace, and I know it makes me a terrible person to say this, and people will call me sexist, but I actually find that episode hilarious.
I know people are pissed about that. I have no real memory of it, so I'm open to see what that one's going to be. But no, I don't remember anything that could have this bad of a score coming up.
This just made me well. Future characters in other episodes will make me angry. Like I mean, I can't stand the crew of the Valiant.
Oh, that 5-star episode. But I think the difference that we're talking about, if we were to review some of our previous scores, scores, I think we'd probably argue the story was bad, and despite the characters trying to salvage it, not only is this story bad, but the characters are bad and damaged, and I think that's what's making you so angry. Whereas there's been other one score episodes where you're like, oh yeah, I feel bad for the character or for the actor.
I mean, the only thing that came close to me was maybe Meridian, because I had the same problem with that in the sense that I don't feel like that's Dax. But I mean, this is even worse.
Yeah, there is no element that's good. I mean, yeah, okay, Quark has a joke that's good. Bashir has a joke that's good. That's not enough. But episodes like Valiant at least have some phaser fights in it, a spaceship.
Right. And I get to
latch onto.
Well, that episode gets an automatic another star from me because I get to see all those people that I hate blow up and die horribly.
Sure, yeah.
Matt, we can't give 6-star episodes. The score is only 5.
But there's none of that in this episode to latch onto. Yeah, people jokingly say Terry Farrell in a bikini. Yeah, good for you. Whatever. There's an internet now. You don't need to watch a horrible episode to see her in a bikini.
If anything, that should make you more angry at this, because here's Worf worrying about morality when he's got this, his hottest shit girlfriend in front of him in a bikini, and all he wants to do is go complain about morality.
It's terrible. Guys, let's end it. Let's
get out of here. Just real quick, guys, are we doing feedback? Did we decide?
I read Kieran, so I can comment on that. I would just hate to fall behind another week because we didn't do it last week, did we?
Yes, we did.
Oh, we did. That's right. I know we did. Yeah, that's right, because I edited it. So, yeah, it's just I'm not on. I'm on next week too. That's right.
So. Well, the interesting thing here is Zubair email. It's very long and thoughtful. I haven't really read it because Chris responded to it instantly. So it's actually one of those cases where he might be the one that should respond to it because he actually wrote a couple paragraphs.
You want to hold out for a week then when we get Chris back?
I think it maybe should be worth it because I always like reading his things. If I were to respond, I'd like to give it a little bit more thought because he clearly gives a lot of thought to it. So I like to try and match.
Then let's just comment that we had some really good comments that we want to put a bit of thought in, and Chris, we'd like Chris here to comment on one of the posts. That way it shows that we've acknowledge that we're holding off for a reason this time.
And I'll try to make it a bit humorous.
Okay.
So thankfully that ends our discussion on Let He Who Was Without Sin, which is an episode I will deny its existence for the rest of time. And, we had some great comments this week in our feedback section on our episode of The Quickening. But you know what? We just talked about this horrid episode for nearly an hour. And we want to read your comments when we had time to digest them and be more thoughtful about them. And we're not just in crabby moods, because that's what this episode did to us. So we're going to hold off a week and we'll read all of your great comments on The Quickening in our next episode. But until then, there's a number of ways to get a hold of us. You can reach us through email at up2podcast@gmail.com. You can leave a comment on our forums at forum.trekmatefamily.com. Follow us on Twitter at UP2 Podcast and like us on Facebook.com/upperpylon2. 5-star iTunes reviews also help out the show and get the word out about the podcast, which we really appreciate, and we will thank you on air. We truly do appreciate those 5-star reviews. Additionally, you can reach all of us personally on Twitter. I am at mhansen0207. HANSEN, talking about all things science fiction, all things Marvel Cinematic Universe. The new Spider-Man movie's coming out in a couple weeks. I'll probably be talking about that and so much more at my page. And even though he's not here, Chris wanted to let you all know that he is in fact starting his Golden Girls Twitter rewatch. I saw him do episode 2 the other day. He says that he wants to let everybody know that episode 3 will be coming soon. So if you want to follow along with him, he's at Carnivore J.
And I can be found at Pro Sub Zero, where I'm trying to start a movement to get all science fiction TV writers, movies, books. Let's end that cliche of just destroy the mothership and all the drone attackers just stop. I'm sick of it. It's in everything. Let's end that. Let's do it together, everybody.
And I can be reached at Medic1849, where, alas, hockey season is over, but the NHL awards are not, nor is the Vegas expansion draft. And then
the regular draft.
Then the regular draft, exactly.
And free agency.
And then free agency. So I should be still good for about another month or so.
Well, if you made it this far, we want to thank you for enduring Let He Who Is Without Sin with us. And we have much better things to come, including next week, which I consider a very, very underrated, often overlooked episode. So join us next week when we talk about the episode Things Past.
This is Blair from Ontario, Canada. Until next time.
My motto in life is never trust anyone too far, not even myself. I'm Matt in Buffalo.
And this is Matt from Arizona, closing hailing frequencies. Docking clamps are open and you are cleared for departure.